Today's going to be different. This is something that's been heavy on my heart, and it was precipitated by a few events that happened on YouTube. Okay, the title of this segment, as you saw, is Be Careful What You Think You Believe In. Be very careful what you digest. And I'm not talking about politics or anything like that. I'm talking about you. Be careful what you digest. I'm going to give you a few examples. As you know, many of you have come across me because of the storage auctions, the YouTube channel and so on and so forth. Well, the first day I was on the auction trail, I met this really nice guy. His name was Dan. Very nice guy. The type of guy that holds doors open for all ladies. Really, really nice. If he was eating a sandwich, he'd just offer you half. That type of person. He had been out there on the storage auction trail about 20 years. And we're just talking, and I told him about some of my ambitions because I went out there and I said, well, it's my intention to make this a full-time endeavor. And he's like, oh, well, no, don't do that to yourself, friend. And he put his hand on my shoulder and said, look, keep it part-time. This business is just going to break your heart. I've been trying to do it full-time for 20 years. I've been out here. Everyone knows me. I've had a few good ones, but just could not really let my main gig go. And he was a plumber. So he did contract plumbing work. He would come to auctions. Well, about a year into it, I was talking to Dan, and he said, you're really good for a newcomer. And I said, well, I'll try. And a year after that, I had the store and warehouse. He was like, so you came out here with a lot of money. I said, no, actually, this all started with $1,350 from a garage sale. And he just looked at me. He's like, you're lying. And he got upset with me. He got real upset. And he's like, I was your friend when you came out here. I didn't bid against you. And you're going to lie to me? And I was like, Dan, I'm not lying to you. Let me tell you what Dan's problem was. You've heard the example of the student that fell asleep in the classroom and he woke up and supposedly solved the unsolvable math problem because no one told him he couldn't solve it. When you tell yourself over and over and over and over you can't do something, guess what? You're not going to do it. Dan had been telling himself for 20 years he could not be a full-time storage auction buyer. When I met Dan, he had 20 years of experience on me. The day he got pissed off, in like 6 months after the day, I never saw him again. He had 22 years of experience to my 2. What was the difference? Number one, I had goals before I even went out there. I didn't know what storage auctions were about. I heard about them, but I didn't really know. But my goal was, and I wrote it down, bam, 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 I want to, because the contract office furniture business was starting to suck wind. We were entering a period of contracting office space. The average office is much smaller now, 10 years, actually 12 years now, than it was back then. And it's going to get smaller. I just saw the trend, and I was like, well, I could stay here and continue to fight with big boys, or if I really wanted to do well, I was going to have to travel all over the country and manage projects all over the country. I didn't want to do that. I hate business travel. Travel for pleasure is fun, but business travel, living in hotels, when I was younger, it was cool, but now, hell no. Well, I got out, wrote down the goals, and went out with an expectation of being successful. This is something I learned from one of my sales managers. He said, before every presentation in your mind, say you're going to nail it. Now, we live in America where you're supposed to be humble. You're supposed to be very thankful and happy when shit goes right. You're not supposed to say, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to nail this presentation. I'm going to knock their socks off. You're not supposed to say that because that's not humble. My sales manager, and I really thank him, he was pretty much balls to the wall type guy. And he's like, sometimes he would punch me in the chest. He's like, you're going to nail it, right? I mean, hard. I was like, what is wrong with this fool? But I got the message. You must be convinced before you can convince the client. Because I have gone into sales presentations. In the beginning, I wasn't smooth, I wasn't slick. I had a lot of energy and enthusiasm and passion. That got me over, that got me deals, and I started to learn because you need something to work with. You just can't get good thinking you're going to get good without actually going out there and doing some things. Well, I learned to expect good things. Does this mean it's always going to happen? No, I'm not going to lie to you. It's not. There's going to be times you expected to do well and you seriously crashed and burned. And that's okay. Because when you expect things to go well, most of the time, they do. Back to the storage auction business. I found out that Dan started bad mouthing me, and it's like I was arrogant, I was high and mighty, and he taught me everything I knew. Then the people that heard this came to me and it's like, well, if he taught you, why can't he do what you're doing? And I said, hey, there's your answer right there. What happened was I created this paradox that made Dan's belief system start to crash. And when the facade of his belief system crashed, and he had to accept the reality that he did not do the right things, it was a bitter pill to swallow. It was a very bitter pill to swallow. Because for 20 years, he had been telling himself over and over and over and over, I can't be a full-time storage auction buyer. And he made it come true. Then I came out there and did what he wanted to do for 20 years and two. He was not happy with me because I held up a mirror to his face that said, your belief system, your expectations, your flaws, it's flawed. Your belief system is flawed. It has cracks. There's something wrong with it. So we went through that. Now, today on YouTube, I put up a video, 25 ways to make money without having a job. And I decided to do this because I have not had a job since late 2001. I just haven't. And then people start coming out. And this is a teaching moment because you can go back and check out the comments. Because I have a few friends who trade currency. Now, before we even get in that, we're going to get in that much, much later, but it's hard to be successful. Just clarify that. It's hard, but it's not impossible. It's hard, but it's not impossible. It's difficult, it's tricky, but it's not impossible. Keep that. It's not impossible. And we're going back and forth, and I just laid out that, 20-year vet told me I couldn't be a full-time storage auction buyer. And I'm going to tell you another narrative, because what this is about is the narratives that you digest, the things that you take in here, because when they come in here, like a cancer, they grow and they actually crowd out the possibilities. When I started writing, I have, give you some background on that. I've wanted to write for so long. I mean, talking about the 90s, but time was never right for me. Family obligations, I always had to do things and I could just never sit down and just chase my dream. Well, I fell into the storage auction business and it was like an adventure. It kind of satisfied that hunger of writing because there were so many narratives out there in each and every unit. Well, after I got sick and I was healing up, I started writing again and it just started coming out. During that period of time, I started networking with other writers. The world of writing is full of people who don't believe in themselves. They don't. I see it every day. I see it in forums, and there are people who are conditioning their minds for failure. This is why you have to be very, very careful what you believe in. Carmen, a friend of mine, 22 years as a writer, very successful, traditionally published, about 30 books. She's a serious deal. This is what she told me after seeing my first manuscript. You need to take 5 or 6 years, work on your craft, and then put your work out there. That's what she told me. She said, I see a little talent, but you really need to work on so many things. And she's like, I'm not trying to be hateful, just my opinion. Now, she's a romance writer. I was writing a business book. She's a romance writer. People who write in different genres, unless they're exceptionally objective, tend to hate things that are not in their genre. I don't read romance books because I know inherently I'm not going to like them. I don't, I read business, nonfiction, sci-fi, fantasy, good stuff to me. And she told me that. And I immediately went home, and I know it's going to sound very silly to you, and I sat down at my computer, and it's like, I am going to make a full-time living as a writer. I'm going to do it. I'm going to write well. I'm going to write stuff that's going to impact people. I'm going to write things that are going to be good to great. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to be a full-time writer. I did it in 14 months. After hearing that from a 20-something-year vet. Because years ago, I was listening to this tape by Brian Tracy, and he was talking about how you must be solid in your beliefs. Once again, this has nothing to do with religion. This is about what you believe in about yourself and in your world. Well, he was talking about a sailor who had been on the ship for many years, and his passenger that was on the ship who was getting seasick was telling the sailor, like, you should be careful or you're going to get seasick. And the sailor just like, no, I'm not. I'm used to this. And walked off. That's the kind of attitude you must inherently hold for yourself, regardless of what people tell you. I mean, seriously, there's many times I was told, just to be blunt, I wasn't going to be shit. Came from a single parent household. One of those kids. Now, let me tell you about the single parent household. My mother was a single mother. There was 3 of us. Not one of us had a child out of wedlock. My sister doesn't have any kids. She's not married. My brother has one. He's married. I didn't have any kids until I got married. Yeah, got married, then had kids. I know. Wow, right? I say that, people get mad. Brother and sister went to school and finished. I didn't. I was a college dropout. But all went on to be productive, solid citizens from a single parent household. That's more common than you think. But none of us believe that we're going to grow up, because people tell me it's like, you're not going to be shit because of your circumstances. You cannot believe that. You got to just go, throw it up. You cannot digest that, because it's a dangerous thing. People want labels and to define you because it makes them very comfortable dealing with you. That is probably the reason I'm not on television. Just straight up. I had 5 opportunities and I just refused to play ball. Straight up. I just refused to play ball. I'm not going to lie to these people. I'm not about staging units. I'm not going to do it. I think, based on my beliefs, what I actually saw with these 2 eyes and held with these 2 hands that I pulled out of units, that was good enough to make great television, because it entertained my ass for 8 years. That was the biggest driver, because get a unit, you don't know what's in there. It could be crap, it could be good, it could be a love letter. There's so many things it could be. That drove me. I mean, it was just freaking exhilarating, because I refused to believe in other people's narratives. I used to think being a special ed kid was a problem. When you go through 6 years of speech pathology like I did, you have to develop a lot of intestinal fortitude. Number 1, people are teasing you. Number 2, kids are mean. There's bullying. There's all this stuff that's going on. Yet there's this other group, and I had 2 speech pathologists that were great to me. I'm sad I can't remember their names, but there's like, every day for 6 years, you can do it. Every day. I had the hardest problem saying words that ended in TH. In other words, I would screw up. And to this day, I still screw up. I just keep talking and just go right past that. It taught me to believe in myself. That's what you have to do. Whatever WAS, which is a wild ass scheme that you have in your mind, until you try it, until you put your heart, your foot, your soul in it, you don't know where it's going to go. And one of the biggest impediments to your success isn't you. It's the people that surround you and the things that they say to you consistently. Once again, in 2009, I told a friend I was going to start a YouTube channel and I was going to make partner. Man, why you want to do YouTube? That shit's for kids. I was like, no, it's a great video. It's a great medium. It's powerful. I'm going to do it because I don't have the skills to do the blog thing the way that other people are doing. And Not that many people who do what I'm doing. They're doing, YouTube videos. There's like very few. So the field is wide open. No, no, no. Many people, there was about 6 people that thought it was silly. Said so. And it's like, why are you going to do YouTube? That's for kids. I mean, seriously. But did I listen? Hey, 500 and something videos later, I guess not. The thing is, if you know that you're on a good path, you have to have confidence in yourself to move forward. Now, what we're going to do on the webinar is talk about this, and then there's going to be activities, but I'm going to touch on the activities a little bit here. First thing you have to do is mentally and sometimes verbally say that's not true. When someone gives you something that is detrimental to your mental state, which is highly important to your success, you have to actually say, that's not true for me. That may be true for them, but that's not true for me. I refuse it. I'm not going to adopt it. I'm not going to accept it. I'm going to do me. You have to make that decision mentally. Then in the space of negative self-talk, you have to start saying, I'm going to do it. I used to meditate, and that's something else we're going to get into because I go through periods where I do it, but it's like I kind of meditate through my exercise now. Because one of my biggest problems was lack of focus. So my meditation word was focus. I would sit there and say focus in my mind for 20 to sometimes 30 minutes in a meditative state. I noticed changes happening the first week because, in terms of tech, I was using focus consistently, like focus, focus, focus. I was overriding all the bullshit that was going in my mind. It took a few months, and the first time I meditated, I passed out. I mean, seriously, I passed out because I was so stressed. There was so much tension and stuff in my body. I literally passed out because the meditative state released all of that stress, and my body just went, I was out. I don't know if you've ever had, the first time you've ever had like a really good massage, a real therapeutic massage, it'll put your ass to sleep. That's what the first time I meditated did for me. I was just completely knocked out. I woke up groggy like I was drugged. That's how much stuff that goes on. And when I talk about meditation, once again, there's no religious connotation to it at all. Meditation is like exercise for the mind. Exercise strengthens your mind, strengthens your attention, and it also improves your health. So no religious connotations. We're not talking about that. Well, I went through that stuff, and so part of keeping your mental playground clean is being vigilant about what enters your mind. That's one of the reasons I don't watch television a lot. I love football. I watch football. I watch movies, Law and Order. And if you look at television too long, you start to accept certain narratives that are not true and harmful. Let me give you one narrative that's very prevalent right now. Men are idiots. You see it in commercials. You see it in sitcoms. You see it in movies. Whereas women are brave, strong, and make the right decision. There are some women who are brave. There are some women who are strong. And there are some women who frequently make the right decision. But if your dating history is like mine, you don't run into that chick all the time. Maybe 30% of the time, maybe 40% of the time, which means there's just as many jacked up women out there as there are men. But the narrative is they're better than men. And you see that. You see it in commercials. You see it over and over and over. And if you notice something, and mostly there are men here, I call it the wussification of America. It's not cool to be a man. It's not cool to be masculine because that narrative is being force-fed down our throats. And it's being force-fed in the most convenient, insidious manner possible. Television, popular music, and literature. Something else has happened. I don't know if you paid attention to it, but remember when we were growing up and you used to use he in place of, where it was she, it was he. Now it's she. Don't know when that happened, but I started reading. I've noticed it happened about 3-4 years. I just start seeing it more. I was like, I still use he, but I haven't bought in to that paradigm. And for a certain reason, because I don't think I have to. But that's the things you have to do. Another thing that you have to do is, we're going to have a whole class on this called scripting your day. I mentally script it, but I used to have to write it down. You write down how you want your day to go. I know it sounds simple, right? Silly. you'll be amazed at how frequently your day will go as you script it, because you're programming this thing. This right here is the beginning and end of your success. Not your talent level. Nope, not your talent level. If you get this straight and you get your work ethic really high, you can do so much. You can do more in a few years than some people do in a lifetime, because they're unfocused, undirected, and they're just everywhere, and they believe in the narratives that no longer serve them. Another one. Getting a college education is sure as path to success. No, it's not. Getting the right education at the right time in the right field with experience is the path to success. You add all that stuff up from the right school. Okay, then this is like, okay, yeah, if you want to be an attorney at highfalutin tootin law firm in New York, you need to go to Harvard, Princeton, or one of the other schools they like, graduate in the top 10% of the class, and then you've got a shot at getting in there. If you don't do those things, you're not getting in, unless you're just exceptionally brilliant. That's the reality. So in terms of these narratives, you have to be really careful. And as Earl Nightingale said in Lead the Field, you have a choice in this. You can script your own narrative. Now let's get back to my writer friend who told me that I should take 5 or 6 years. Now, being a part of the storage auction business was probably one of the best things to happen to me in my life. I learned so much, and it strengthened me as a person in ways that I'm still discovering. I knew that if I worked hard, I would be okay as a writer. My first goal in the first book, and I'll be honest with you, it was jacked up. It had a lot of mistakes, it had a lot of errors. But my number one goal was to start and finish the book. Goal number one. Why? I have a lot of friends who are writers. Many of those people have 1, 2, 3, 4 books. One of the hardest things for many writers is to finish the book. I figured, even if it was crappy, if I finished it and developed that discipline to finish, then I can improve on everything else. See, everything for me is a process. What many people look upon as failure, because you in writing world, to write your first book is crappy, it's full of errors. Oh God, you'll never get another chance. I don't believe in that. I believe that you will get a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance, a fifth chance, a sixth chance. I believe you'll get chances into perpetuality. See, I replace that, you'll never get another chance. That's their paradigm. That's their thought process. That's why they are where they are. I have a friend who's a brilliant writer. Been working on a book for 4 years. It's not done, not halfway done. Because she doesn't have the mental fortitude and the discipline to sit her ass in the chair and get it done. My friends, having a work ethic and the ability to start and finish projects will take you further in life than all the brilliance and talent in the world of a lazy person. It will. I've seen it. One of the reasons that I was able to move up the storage auction ranks was I outworked those fuckers. Straight up, I just outworked them. I learned, I analyzed, and I did not believe in false narratives. But to the writer friend, she filed bankruptcy this year. I'm not going to dance on her misery. The person who told me 3 years ago that I needed to work on my craft and not put my work out recently filed bankruptcy. Yet I make a full-time and generous living as a full-time writer. Let's marinate on that. This isn't about me. Trust me, this isn't about me. Because I refuse to believe her narrative. I refuse to adopt it. I refuse to eat it. I refuse to digest it. I refuse to let it get in my body and grow. She's more talented than I am. I have no problem saying that. She's way more talented than I am. But I'm clever. I work hard. I know how to analyze. And I know what works in business and what doesn't. She doesn't know any of that. I just gave you a very important lesson. If you know what works in business, you'll do better than someone who's naturally gifted. Because many people who are naturally gifted are lazy, or they lean too much on their gift and they never develop it. Give you an example. A person who is naturally gifted but doesn't work as hard as they could. Randy Moss. If Randy Moss was not such a head case and he worked his ass off, he would have exceeded Jerry Rice because he had more natural talent. He's still in the NFL because of his talent, but he isn't producing because his mind isn't right. Give you an example of tremendous talent and a voracious work ethic. Michael Jordan. Michael was talented, but his work ethic was larger than his talent level. I had a friend I used to work with around the corner. It's so funny. I used to actually work at a hospital that's like 5 minutes from my place. She had a cousin who played for the Bulls back then. And when they come in town, he'd come by and they were real close. And he would tell us stories. In practice, he's like, if you missed an assignment or you didn't do what you do, Michael was subject to punch your ass. There was no doubt about who was the leader of that team. And the thing is, he would punch your ass if you were not working as hard as he was. Understand, he wasn't like Allen Iverson, practice. No, he was like, we're here to practice. We're here to win. We're going to make it happen. I'm going to work my ass off, and I expect you to do the same. Fucking genius. Okay, I got chills because it's rare that you get a person of such an immense talent level who works that hard. That's how important hard work is. Total differentiate. I mean, Randy Moss could be like the all-time leading receiver, and he could have did that years ago, but his mind was in other places. He didn't realize how fortunate he was to be where he is. I think he's kind of getting it now, but he didn't realize it at the time. Yes, this person who adopted a narrative. And I'm going to tell you some stuff about writing because we're going to address that in here because it's a great opportunity. And I'm going to tell you a little secret, something I discovered. You can make money from books, ebooks, and you don't have to be a great writer. I have met people who are selling way more books than I am, and they can't write as well as I can. Some of them don't even write their own stuff. There's this whole thing with Kindle. Kindle right now, ebooks right now, is like the gold rush of the 1800s. Let me give you a number. E-commerce represents about 15% of all commerce. Okay? That includes all ebooks. That includes everything Amazon does online. 15%. In a few years, it's going to be 30, 40%. It's just going to grow. It's going to be completely inverted on things it can. I mean, seriously, it's going to be 60, 70% commerce is going to be online, which means we have a long way to go. I mean, seriously, it just gives me chills when I sit down and I look at it. I'm just like, this can't be real. Because, you know, you always hear those things. I would love to be on the front end of something. I didn't come in on the front end of storage auctions, and I was pretty successful. But I am on the front end of this, and that's one of the reasons that I've changed everything, created the hustler mindset, because what I realized one day, actually the day that Carmen filed bankruptcy, was I was a little different from people, and I was like, what the hell? You know, the hustler mindset, that was just kind of like I just threw that out there, just some principles. But as time went on and I started looking at people who had better education credentials than I did, more prestigious jobs, and I started looking at the totality of their life, and their life was in the crapper. They weren't living the life they wanted to live, but I was a college dropout. It's like, what's going on with that? Then I kind of went back and looked at everything that happened to me from, growing up in Adamsville, growing up in that little town, from having a speech impediment. All that set the stage to do bigger and better things. So if your life's kind of crappy right now, that may be a good thing. And don't throw rocks at the computer screen. Don't throw rocks at the computer screen. Listen to me. That is giving you a certain level of strength that the person who has an okay life or never really experienced any adversity, you're getting a level of strength that they don't have. So if your life's a little crappy and you're moving forward, you've got a perspective that's deeper and stronger than the person who got lucky, a person who was born with a silver spoon in their mouth. Because this new economy is going to wreak havoc with a lot of things. A lot of people are going to get caught sleeping. A lot of people are going to be hurt because they're not paying attention. But in short, be very careful with the narratives, the belief systems, the paradigms, all that stuff that enters your mind. You have to be vigilant and on guard to what enters your mind at all times. Like I said, it's one of the reasons I cut back from television, and one big reason is it gives me more time to write, and also gives me what I call sit down, do nothing, lazy time. Because when I'm just kind of like just doing nothing, ideals just drop. They just download from the cosmos. I go for a walk and bam, here's an idea for a book. It just drops like that. So you kind of need that time if you're a creative person for things to drop. But if you're working 2.5 jobs and you're married and you're going to school, you may actually be missing out on something that's for you because you're so busy chasing things that are not for you. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your life. Your life is your life. At the end of the day, you're the one sleeping in that bed. I'm just a guy that's giving you information, and hopefully you can make the best use of it for your life. Because what worked for this guy may not work for this guy, and so on and so forth with other people. But I can say this. Across the board, when you start to monitor and be vigilant what enters your mind, your life will improve. Your life will improve in ways you cannot imagine because you learn something that sounds silly. You learn how to think. You learn how to analyze. Give you another example. I just brought the blog back. I let it go because the YouTube channel was kicking its ass. The YouTube channel was easier, faster, had a larger reach. So why was I, so I dedicated all my time, bam, to the YouTube channel. But now there's some wonderful things that are happening with blogs because I took the blog down, deleted everything, and started from scratch because I didn't like it, I wasn't happy, and it wasn't giving me the results. Well, guess what? There's new software out there. There's new technology, and the blog's faster, cleaner. It has a better look. I took a day, and just to give you an example of why you should work hard. The first time I did the blog, it took me a month. Okay? It took me a month to do it. Second time, took a few weeks. Third time, about a week. I revamped, I deleted because something got screwed up with the script. I completely deleted the blog, redesigned it and everything in one Saturday. And I'm going to go somewhere else with this. Someone left a comment on the YouTube channel that they had failed in the storage auction business, but it's a beautiful ending. They said, but I went after it hard, like you said, and I failed, but I discovered and added another avenue because I was working so hard that's making me money now. I was just blown away because, see, that's the thing. When you work hard, even when you fail, you win because you bring something out of that experience. There are many people who enter the storage auction business who are not successful because they put their toe in there. It's like, I'm just going to put a little bit of risk in there. So unless it works out well, I'm not going to go all in. I'm not going to be fully vested. I'm not going to push all my chips on the table. I'm not doing that. Now, let me tell you the danger of not doing that. I'm a pretty passionate person. I'm pretty much either I'm in or I'm not. I'm all consuming. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But I've learned that when I put all my passion and I move forward, even with the mistakes, even with all of the bad stuff that happens sometimes, bad stuff will happen when you move forward too fast. It happens sometimes. But I learned so quickly that I'm able to reset and move faster and go further the next time. Do you hear what I'm telling you? Even when it doesn't work out, by working as hard as you can, you still get major benefits. People told me that as a kid. I didn't understand that. until much later in life. I didn't really understand it because in the storage auction business, I was 7 days a week a lot. Worked my ass off, didn't go on dates, just worked, 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 worked. And some people, that's a sad life because you see it. It's like, hey, you shouldn't, it's not going to be on your tombstone that he worked this hard, which is true. But because I worked so hard and I bought all those units and I sold all those units and I read all those letters and I watched all those dirty movies and I met with all those crazy people on Craigslist, I have probably 400, if not more, stories that I can put in a book and make money for the rest of my life. That's the payoff of hard work. I was rewarded when I was doing it, yet I'm still rewarded now. Because to be something, you must do something. You got to get started. You got to get started. Like sitting and waiting and hoping, it's just not going to work. And like with my best friend, Francine, who died from cancer, watching her die, I learned how to live. Because, she was very courageous with it. She went through a lot. I took her to the doctor. I saw a lot of stuff that just blew my mind. Because I used to work in the hospital, and I never saw that part of cancer. I would like see patients. They would come in the lab or whatever. I never saw cancer 24/7, 365 like I did with her. And it's a scary, scary thing. Because, the whole family, the friends, the whole circle get cancer. But watching that, I learned how to live. And it left an indelible impression on me. Life is short. You don't have all this time to be waiting to do something. If you can't do it fully 100% right now, totally understand. But you can do 10%. You can do 20%. You can do something that will move you towards your goal right now, today, and build on it. I have been wanting to write since 1997. I didn't get my full-time chance to 2009. 12 years. I had to wait. But while I was waiting, I was still doing stuff. So I get that. I get that. It may not be your day, but you can still be doing things to get you to that goal. But that's the deal with being a vigilant guard of your mental state. Not letting stuff get in. I'm serious. Like when we get to the workshop, I'm gonna have a series of things that you can do to keep that shit out. You have to keep it out. Because I want you to think about this. I used to be guilty of this. You can have 8 people that say, you're good, you're great, you're wonderful. Then you have that one person that go, I don't know about that. And that's the person you will think about that day, that week, that month, or for a year. That little bit of negativity. And the reason is we are programmed for negativity. We're programmed to reject positive things. Like if someone gives a 5-star review, people are like, it can't be that perfect. There's got to be something wrong with it. For the most part, that's true. But there's cases where sometimes things are close to perfect as possible and they deserve a 5-star review. But people are hesitant to give it because the narrative is you must be humble. Can't do too much. You have to regurgitate all that bullshit to be successful. Everyone that I know who's successful that kind of plays the humble role, it's a role. Because part of being, I'm going to share something with you that may blow your mind. You may think I'm crazy, but I'm going to share it with you. But part of living in society is walking in 2 lanes. There's that lane that you're going to walk in where you're doing your thing, but you still have to coexist with the other human beings, the other carbon-based life forms. Because if you do something too radical, they're not going to be happy. And when you make people unhappy, they tend to revolt, and they will revolt on your ass because, once again, you're holding that mirror up to their mediocrity. People don't like that. They don't like to be pointed out for being mediocre. They don't know. Can't have that. They will kill you to get rid of you so they won't be reminded of that image. That's how deep it is. Okay, now here's the strange thing. I used to do a lot of reading. There was this book called Super Learning that I read probably in '96. And essentially it's ways to enhance your learning process. Reading that book, I came across another book, and this is a belief of mine. I haven't met any of these people, or I don't know if I met any, but I believe there's a group of people who are like super geniuses among us. They do so many things, but because they know how we are, they blend in. You have to, because if you come out like, I can add and subtract really fast. And sometimes, check comes and I'm like, I'm pulling out money. I just look at it and pull out the money and this is the correct tip. I've had people freak out about that. It's like, why are you freaking out about that? Because it's a mirror to their own mediocrity. Just because they can't add fast doesn't mean they're stupid. See, that's the thing. What I had to learn is when you get something like the speech impediment, several really good things came from that. It took me a long time to realize, like, I have an excellent memory because I had so many problems early in school. I made myself remember stuff. Just like, I'm going to remember because, if the teacher says this is how you do the lesson, I would get that lesson from her verbally because I was going to have problems reading it. So I had to get it from her. And my memory just was like, bam. Another thing that happened is, which is really, really funny, is I lost that train of thought, but it will come back. Once again, the memory. I know it's funny, right? I'm talking about like a super memory. That's weird that it would just slide off like that because I got excited. But I will come back to that. And essentially, the benefit was a super, super strong memory and resolve there. See? Because that's another little trick. Sometimes when you have something that's kind of like slipping, if you relax and say it will come back, it'll come back. But if you like, bear down and all that stuff, it's going to go. If you just sit a little while, like, it'll come back. It's almost like, yeah, come here. It'll come back. During that period of, developing the memory and the inner resolve, it was like, I just know I can do things because I had to do something that most people take for granted, which is learn how to speak correctly. I mean, it's really, really wow. But back to the super people. Just like there are people who are, and that's another thing. Bam, see, you can call it back. There was 3 points. 2 of them slipped because they got exciting. Just like the super people blend in, you can blend in. But also, just like I had the speech impediment, I got the great memory, the resolve, and I learned how to teach myself stuff because I was so embarrassed in the classroom that I figured out if I taught myself before the other kids did, I didn't have to suffer that embarrassment. So that's 3 really positive things that came from having a speech impediment. A lot of times when you have something with you that's not culturally acceptable or is frowned upon or people will tease you about, if you peel back the layers, sometimes there's some beauty in that. And I didn't know that because I wouldn't tell people about the speech impediment until I was like maybe 32. I just wouldn't because I was ashamed and embarrassed. And that's another thing that will keep you not as successful as you could be, is shame. I have made big mistakes in my life. I've married the wrong woman. I've invested money in the wrong place. And a lot of that stuff was painful and long. But I learned from all of it. Don't be afraid to screw up. You can't. What you can get from that other side is so beautiful, so enriching of your life. I can't put a price on it. So that's the deal. All right, let's going to wrap this up. So this is Monday, from the top. Monday, new video. Tuesday, webinar. Wednesday, activity. And that's your Hustler's Mindset project. I'll see you in the next video.